Okay, recording in progress. Hello, hello. Today is Tuesday evening, June 13th, 2023. This is my weekly A Course in Miracles Zoom virtual meeting from 7 to 8 Eastern Daylight Time. If anyone wants to get the link, just private message me on Facebook, and that name is Glenda Carlin Busick, B-U-S-I-C-K, and I'll email you a link, and that link does not change. It's the same link every week. Welcome, welcome. I want to invite in Holy Spirit, Jesus, Buddha, enlightened beings, ascended masters. You're always here, but we invite you in. Welcome, welcome, to give us insights, help us in whatever way that's to our highest good. Because I don't always know what my highest good is, and to have fun. And welcome, Holy Son of God Edward, Holy Son of God Barbie, Holy Son of God Alvaro, Holy Son of God Angela, Holy Son of God Lynn, Holy Son of God Gonzalo, Holy Son of God Leon, Holy Son of God Joanne, Holy Son of God Nance, Holy Son of God Debbie, Holy Son of God Glenda. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And as you all know, it's a big deal to grasp the fact that we're a son of God, we're Christ or Buddha, but ultimately you'll remember that there's only God. And so therefore, each of us is God. Of course, God's our creator, but there's nothing else. It's God. There's only this, and my talk title tonight is Taking Responsibility for Your Unawakened Mind's Projections and Drawing Them Back into your Christ heart mind by loving them. Now, and why we're doing the course, there's a whole saying here that I love. I found in one of these books that I'm going to talk about tonight, and I want to read it. Here it is. We travel the spiritual path in order to gain freedom from compulsion and from unfulfilling, frozen patterns of behavior, and to rediscover our authentic lives. Debbie back in here. I'm going to read that again because here comes Jerry. I got a Jerry. Okay, here is Debbie. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Debbie. Welcome, Jerry. Holy Son God Jerry, Holy Son God Debbie. Welcome, welcome. I was just reading, what I'm reading from is one of Lama Surya Das's books. It is Awakening the Buddha Within. And one of the four things I've been contemplating since like Sunday or so is characteristics of the ego mind and then our awakened mind, but also what is the spiritual path? And so there's a quote here. While you're studying the course and whatever else you're doing, meditating, we travel the spiritual path in order to gain freedom. We're gaining freedom, not being a prisoner anymore, from compulsions and from the word unfulfilling, frozen patterns of behavior, and to rediscover our authentic lives. And our authentic lives is our God nature, Christ Buddha nature. But one of the things I try to do is give you characteristics of things and another way of looking at the course that might be able to have you grasp something at a deeper level. Because compulsion, like then you think about your own life. And you can even write this down and ask yourself, what compulsions, what things do I just feel compelled to do? Well, that's a compulsion. That means ego is that's an ego thought, that a compulsion. But unfulfilling, isn't that a great way to describe unfulfilling, frozen patterns of behavior? And oh, there's Francis. Welcome, Holy Son of God, Francis. So we travel the spiritual path in order to gain freedom from compulsion and from unfulfilling frozen patterns of behavior and to rediscover our authentic lives. That's what happens. And we rediscover those authentic lives in moments, in holy instances. And those can be varying things as you awaken. And so that you don't think you're totally awakened, because it's a process, is there's moments, instances, which are, you can have light experiences in your mind. You can hear divine sounds, a high-pitched sound in your mind. We're not talking about tinnitus. We're talking about holy sounds, divine smells. You feel light as a feather when you meditate. Wisdom breakthroughs, insights. You see this luminous void, this black, clear, luminous void. You feel a total relief of some burden. And you keep going and you're not stuck. Now, see, these are moments of awakening and enlightenment, but we don't have premature immaculation thinking we're home already, because ego would love that and have you stop studying, stop meditating, get stuck, it's called. Getting stuck in a fixed pattern, or this other thing is a frozen pattern of behavior, where and that can even mean when you get into this methodic meditating, where we're meditating to become calm, but just calm ourselves, or just be in a blissful state. That really is not that's a byproduct of meditation, but that is not the purpose we're meditating. We're meditating to become aware of how the mind works, and to be aware of when the mind's wandered off and bring it back to this vertical center of your Christ, Buddha, God, spaciousness, or light. But anyway, being stuck means people get stuck in bliss. They get stuck in calmness and peace. Now, these are byproducts, but what you'll find is when you're awakened heart and awakened mind and opened heart, you're spontaneous. You're spontaneous. You're in the flow with what's coming and going. We're not sleepwalking. We're not in a trance. We're not like a wooden Buddha. You're flowing. It's a flow. And that, tonight I'm going to be describing some characteristics that what I did, I hand wrote them on a piece of paper, and I carry them around when I walk, and I sit them by my chair, and I contemplate these characteristics of the ego mind and the awakened mind. So what's happening, I'm cultivating an awareness, an awakened awareness of what's going on in my mind. So I want to read to you some characteristics of the mind that I carry around on a piece of paper. This is from Awakening the Buddha Within book. The awakened mind is free-flowing, natural, and well-rounded like Teflon. Now, isn't that perfect? Like Teflon. Nothing sticks to it. Free-flowing, natural, well-rounded. The unawakened mind, also called ordinary mind, is rigid, limited, and sticky like flypaper. That's what I really like. You see, these are words that really help me. You know, when you're meditating and the mind wanders, well, that's sticky flypaper, because the mind has just grabbed on to some thought that you're going to do later, or you did in the past, or you're going to do in the future. And you then bring your attention back to the spaciousness of the vertical center of your Christ self. The ordinary mind has corners and sharp, jagged edges on which ideas get caught, hanging us up. Now, picture the awakened mind is well-rounded. The unawakened ordinary mind has these sharp, jagged edges, corners, and ideas get caught. And see, that's in meditation too. An idea, you go off with an idea, or even walking around during the day, before you know it, the mind's off with an idea. Dualistic thinking, which is ordinary mind, is like Velcro. It takes two to tangle. In that perfect, like Velcro, it takes two to tango. That's called subject and object. And two to tango means karma's happening, good or bad or whatever. That's dualistic thinking. Unitary vision, meaning this vision of Christ's vision, or called diamond vision in Dzogchen, is more like a crystal through which all forms of light can pass unimpeded. So what you're developing and cultivating is a mind that's more like a crystal through which all forms of light can pass unimpeded. And then what I really liked in that sentence was these words, all forms of light. So see, when you look at this screen, all these heads and people and the furniture behind you and your whatever's in your room, all those things are forms of light. They're forms of light. The God source, the God mind, which is light, clear light, we use that light. The Son of God used that light to animate and make forms. It animates, it fills them with light. So they're forms, we're forms. But in dualistic thinking, we're looking out here and seeing bodies, and we forgot your light. We forgot we're light. And so you're thinking about each person's God, spirit, Christ, Buddha, light, or love. And it's how you think. How you think is how of others is how you'll think of yourself. But that's what you're cultivating, is recognizing everything are forms of light. When in this talk, what I realized, I used to think that the body images were darkness, with maybe some light coming out the cell. You know, there's light coming out the cells, but it's the opposite. You are light. Everything's light, and it's continuous, uninterrupted light that's passing unimpeded through this clear light mind, this pure, innocent, clear light God mind. Anyway, the unawakened mind tries to grasp and hold on to emotions and things which by their very nature are fleeting. It's like trying to grasp water between your hands. Now, I love that. I'm not kidding you. When I'm walking, I got the handwritten piece of paper. I'll get off the road and I'll be reading a sentence and I'll go, oh, yeah. The unawakened mind is grasping and holding on to emotions and things which by their very nature are fleeting. See, that's the other thing that's so bizarre about this dream, and which can tell you it's a dream, is because everything's changing. It's not permanent. The forms live and die, change, grow old, maybe get sick, get well, change, you know, it lives and dies, changes, maintenance. A car rusts. If you live by the ocean, patio furniture rusts. Maintenance, got to mow your yard. It's changing. It's changing. The very deal that it's changing proves to you it's impermanent and it's not God. That is not God. That is impermanence. But things, so we grab onto emotions and things, but you want to think about those things are fleeting, that are fleeting. It's like trying to grasp water between your hands. So that gives you a visualization what the heck we're doing different times during the day. We're grasping and trying to grab onto emotion and things. That's like trying to hold water in our hands. Just let go, lean back, and just kind of be, rest. Remember, I'm light, I'm love, they're light and love. Whatever sentences that come to you from the Course that center you, align you. Develop a mind that clings to nothing is a meditative maxim that comes from the Diamond Sutra. We're talking here Dzogchen. The word diamond refers, now I love this sentence, refers to the keen, K-E-E-N, discrimination edge of penetrating wisdom. The word diamond, vision, is diamond vision, refers to the keen discriminating edge of penetrating wisdom. Now, what that's referring to is what Jesus talks about is you're learning to sort true from false. You're just not falling prey to every thought that shows up in the mind or every emotion. You're developing, cultivating keen, discriminating edge of penetrating wisdom. And it becomes like a pinpoint, like laser almost, of discriminating wisdom. That's what you're developing. And that final thing was about why we're doing this is to gain freedom. And then besides the freedom from compulsions and unfulfilling frozen patterns of behavior, picture this word, this phrase, entrenched opinions, fixed positions. So kind of journal that or write it, and then ask yourself, what was I just thinking? That's a fixed position. Really, they're judgments, but it allows you to really grasp what this mind's doing. It's an entrenched opinion of whatever, maybe a race or a person, a politician, blah, blah, blah. Wow, because you are questioning these thoughts. And your know thyself is the main, what Jesus says, the Course of Miracles is to know thyself and know your brother and what source is and how the mind works. That's the other big thing, because I wrote that here. I want to explain. I want to write. I want that one. What you're learning to do is remember what is real, how things work, knowing oneself and others, your true natural Christ self, but remembering what is real. See, that's sorting true from false, how things work. You're learning how your mind works, and you're learning how the world works. Things born that look like they're real, where I'm grabbing a hold of it, now let go. That's fleeting, that's ephemeral. What's real is spirit. Anyway, okay, now what I want to get to is, I was in a one-day, I'm going to find page 1. I was in a one-day virtual retreat last Saturday with that Lama Surya Das and a group of people, and he was discussing, it's called the 4 Faces of Buddha, but you can change Buddha to Christ, 4 Faces of Christ. And what those are loving kindness, sacred joy, compassion, and equanimity. Equanimity, treating everyone the same, one taste it's called. That's the 4 faces of the Christ, that same thing that Jesus teaches us in the Course. And so I was contemplating what he talked about, and then I was also contemplating in the Course, because in that talk, Lama Surya talked about, I am responsible for my own karma. My happiness and suffering depends entirely on me. And so I thought, oh, Jesus has got a similar statement. And that's in chapter 21, section 2, paragraph 2. And this is how Jesus puts it. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I will experience. I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. See, that is, each of us are learning to take responsibility for our own actions, our own thoughts, our own feelings, not blaming anybody else, etc. And then that made me think about, it's in the introduction to the text, love is our natural inheritance. How can you remember, I was asking myself this, how can you remember you're loving, that your normal natural state is love, if your higher self, if you do not feel love for friends, enemies, and strangers, and if I don't think loving thoughts about them? Now, how can you remember your love if you don't practice loving? I know it sounds so simple, but it's huge. Here comes Gabby in. Now, why that came up is in this talk, Lama Surya said he attended 2 3-year, 3-month these retreats. And in one of these retreats, there were 23 people. And after that 3-year retreat was done, somebody asked him, well, what is the main thing you learned from that? And he said, it surprised him that he said, and I got to get this quote right. What did he say? That could be on page 2. See, I want to get the quote correct. Now, while I found that, before I forget, here is, remember, we're developing a mind that doesn't cling to anything. I want to come back to some page 1 things here. All right, must be on page 2. I love the ones I don't like. This is what he said to him. To his surprise, that's after 3 years and 3 months in a retreat with 23 people, how to love the ones I don't like. And what that made me think of when he teaches and I attend these virtual workshops. I've never met him in person. It's all virtual Zoom. Is he'll say, can you love the things you hate? Remember, I brought this up before. And if to just re-clarify, he brought that up 2 or 3 times and I would just pass it off. And finally, I think maybe the 3rd time, I got irritated by it. I was irritated. I mean, I didn't hate anything. Then I realized later, if I'm irritated, there's something amiss. Holy Spirit, help me. And I then journaled, asked Holy Spirit, show me the things I hate. And so then I journaled these things, politicians, different ants that bit me, dead palm fronds I'd have to pick up after a storm. But the thing is, what I've learned with meditation, studying the truths in the Course, and doing these workshops and retreats with this Lama Surya Das, is the ego mind defaults with judging. I like it or I don't like it. It's just automatic. And typically it doesn't like it. Or, or I want it, I don't want it, or I love it, or I hate it. And a lot of times this stuff is unconscious. You don't even know ego's saying it. Unconscious mind's doing it. You just might start to feel different or feel upset, etc. But since for a year, I've been off and on asking, and I love the things I hate. And asking Holy Spirit, show me anything I dislike, because it don't take this personal. Ego, that's what it's doing. It is constantly judging, sorting, labeling. I like it, I don't want it. And then that causes us to have attachment, grasping, clinging, and attachment and aversion, or pushing things away. I don't want it, I hate it, I don't like it, get the heck out of here. Then that causes where we have fixed. What develops then are these fixed opinions, these fixed frozen behavioral patterns, addictions, things we do in rote behavior. Oh, my TV came on, sorry. In rote behavior that are just unconscious. Is sleepwalking, but that's why you're becoming aware of how the mind works, and you choose again. Then I'm not thinking that way. So as I this is Sunday evening, I was sitting in that night, Sunday night, I was contemplating all those characteristics of ego mind and holy mind, And I was reading about the 4 faces of Christ or Buddha. And in that talk, he said there's 37 practices to do for the bodhisattva. Now, what a bodhisattva is a person who's awakening, in the process of awakening. And see, that's what you are. You all are. That's just a word that the Dzogchen Buddhists use. But I looked it up, and it's the process of awakening, which is what you all. There's 37 practices that in those 3-year retreats, they would meditate, there's 37, on one at a time and take months to go through these 37 practices of their virtues and how to contemplate life, etc. Anyway, I was reading those, and don't you know, the news came on. And for those that aren't prepared, it's about news. It was about Donald Trump going to be indicted. Now, see, I've over the years practiced seeing him as spirit and overlooking any behavior. Now, people love Donald Trump, then pick Biden and then see him as spirit and light, or some other politician you don't not like. There's the combat in Israel and Palestine, or Putin and Kaczynski, or whatever. Pick some politician that you seem to have an aversion to. So that was happening, and I was practicing on Trump, seeing him as light, saying I love you to him, etc. Well, then I went to bed. So I went to bed, and I wake up at 4 o'clock, and I'm laying in bed contemplating those four faces, which are loving kindness, sacred joy, compassion, and equanimous love. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Lama Surya said he realized during that retreat that if he practiced equanimous love towards everything, the other 3 faces would come naturally along, which is loving kindness, sacred joy, meaning you're happy when people have successes, etc., compassion, empathy, that they'll come along. Now, what is equanimous love? Equanimous love is saying, I love you to everything, which is what Jesus says. Love is your natural inheritance. And if you're not loving and feeling loving thoughts, or can say, I love you silently to everything, even though it's called faking it while you make it, because we don't love all these things until later you'll love them. And it goes deeper and deeper into holy love, because we're moving from human love to holy love. That's why it takes a while. You can't just practice on one person maybe 10 times and think, oh, I got that fixed. Well, you may feel all right then, but you just keep on practicing. I love you about them, and asking the Holy Spirit to have equanimous love. Meaning you think about loving everything. I'm not kidding. If you are love, that could save you and bring you all the way home. If you could, to the home you never left, it's just we're asleep. We're asleep to the home we never left, is if you can love. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm laying there contemplating the 4 faces, and then Trump's face comes to mind. And I know what this means. So I immediately say, I love you. You are light, spirit, Christ, God. I love you. Now, see, I'm going to read what happened, because it's important that I want to share this. So then, oh, I forget why also, then it came up about love, your natural inheritance is love. Then when I said that to Trump, that I love you, then don't you know, I started to feel sad for him and feeling empathy. I started thinking about how horrible it must feel to be on the end of some indictment of something. And granted, he's innocent until the jury does whatever it does. He's innocent until proven guilty. But in this indictment, they've got recordings where he's asking his lawyer, can't you just get rid of these documents? Well, that's obstruction. You don't get rid of secret documents. But the point is, how does he feel about going to go to court? Who in the heck wants to go to court? I've never been in court. Once my company in 35 years was in the pre-deposition of a court thing. It's horrible. So I'm going, wow, that's horrible. And as I'm feeling sad for him, not wanting that to happen, that he's suffering. But then it dawned on me, he may not be suffering because he's not aware of this. This is just a way of life for not just him. He may be aware he's suffering or whatever, but people think this is just a way of life, that I'm suffering, I'm upset, I'm angry or whatever. They don't realize there's a way out of this ego mind. But anyway, so I'm thinking that way. And then that I have empathy for this guy, but I'm not realizing I'm having empathy for him when I'm thinking all these thoughts. Then all of a sudden my mind went to this vast black sky with countless stars, beautiful stars, all in my mind. And then, I saw a tall, dark person, black person. Wasn't black clothes. It was a solid black, tall form, a person there. And instantly, I'm not kidding you, this all was so instantaneously, I said to myself, that is me. That evil person. Oh, wait, I instantly knew it was an evil acting person, that black figure that was there. And then I said to myself, that's me. That evil person is within me. I'm not kidding you. And all of a sudden, the dark black figure went from outside my mind to in my mind and disappeared. And I knew what that meant. I was taking ownership of my dark side. I had brought this dark side in from being out there, being a projection, to where it belongs as a mental image in my mind. I'm not kidding. I wrote this down immediately. And then I thought there's no evil acting people out there, only evil thoughts in my mind. There's nothing going on out there and no one to go anywhere. All of this is a movie I'm watching in my mind. And then I remember Jesus' quote, I'm responsible for what I see and feel. All this went real fast, that the dark black figure came into my mind. And then immediately a light shot into my right eye, not once, but 3 times. And each time it was very painful. This sharp light went into and caused my body to jerk each time. And after the light happened, then I realized again what had happened. I was having empathy for a fellow human being, empathy. And then also realizing that there is no person there. There's nobody out there. These are my thoughts. Now, what's happening with the Course is, and Dzogchen, with meditation and studying Dzogchen truths, we're remembering that we're mind in a mind, purely mind, just like Jesus says. And that mind is clear light, God's source. And the movie is inside, we're watching the movie inside our mind. But these things look like they're projected out in front of us, and that's all just a trick. Because when they're projected out in front of you, it looks like they're real, makes them look more real. And then I can blame things out there for why I'm not happy or why something's going wrong. Because if they did something different, or the economy was different, my job was different, my boss was different, my loved one was different, if I didn't feel puny, I mean, just go down the list. Now, of course, we still don't put ourselves in harm's way, but I just want to share the full magnitude of this. Why that stuff's projected out there is so that we get relief from the guilt that we left heaven with a thought. We left heaven and we're wanting to blame somebody why I'm not. This is all unconscious, why I'm not home in heaven right now. Now we're in heaven right now, we're just not aware of it. But these projections are not there. That's why we do these lessons where, and Jesus says, close your eyes and look at these thoughts, because he's wanting you to come back to your mind and recognize these are images in my mind. And whatever I see in my mind gets projected out there. So when the images are dark and evil and horrible and whatever, or they could be beautiful, just love that image. I want that image. I want to have that. I don't, because wanting is just as bad as unwanting because it's dualistic. We still make choices, don't get me wrong, but we're not in the throes of gotta have it or gotta don't want it. But anyway, it was a projection. So what happened, I brought the projection back into my mind, and it became easier for me to see that there's no head. Then there's no head. 360 degrees, you are mind, clear light, pure light mind, because you've come home to your identity, which is spirit, pure love, pure clear light. And these projections and images are like what Dzogchen calls like sky gazing, are like clouds on the sky. Their images are thoughts and their emotions that are showing up out here on this clear light mind that seems to be out there, but it's really your mind is vast and spacious, vast, bigger than the sky, bigger than all the universes is your holy mind and your holy heart. So you're bringing all these, you will ultimately bring all your projections back in varying stages and varying times in your awakening process, because you got to take ownership and responsibility for what you're seeing, thinking, and doing. And so it's a gradual process because you can't do all this at once. Maybe there's some people that can, but that's the big picture, folks. By you having empathy, compassion for a brother, it's huge, because we're not beating them the hell up. We're loving them. You're loving them. You're having compassion. You're putting yourself in their shoes. And then you slowly, bringing you and them back to the love that you are, in your heart. And you have one of these holy instances of feeling this peace and light like a feather, seeing light colors in your mind, holy sounds, holy smells. That tells you you are progressing on the path of enlightenment. Now, if your mind is starting to get rigid or cantankerous or irritated, then you want to step back, because hard like saddle leather, they call it in Dzogchen. You want to back up and look at, what am I thinking? What am I judging? And you come back off that. You're aware of that, whatever those thoughts and feelings are, journaling them and practicing I love you, saying I love you silently, or you are spirit, hope you're innocent, all is forgiven and released, to all these images, because that's how you wake up from the dream. You're coming back home. The home you never left is just, we've been in perpetual wandering, wandering, perpetual wandering, meaning these thoughts have a thought, we wander off with the thought, then we get aware, oh man, I'm off with the thought, I've just judged a person, oh, their spirit, come back to that thought. Now I want to clarify, come back to holiness. How am I thinking about them? How you think of the other person's how you think of yourself. Now I want to clarify, We're not doormats psychologically or physically to anybody. You need to have psychotherapy, you do it. You need to call 911, you do it. We never put the body in harm's way. Then after, as soon as you can remember, start practicing Jesus' advanced forgiveness, that these people are spirit, light, love, and that you are spirit, light, love, as Christ, Buddha, God as well. It's so cool. Do you kind of see the process? That's what I'm trying to describe, is there's a method to this madness that Jesus is, it's not madness, method to this brilliance in A Course in Miracles and to Dzogchen Buddhism, how to bring the mind back to remember what it is and what your brothers are and what God is. That's what you're remembering. You're cultivating enlightened awareness, it's called, to stop the perpetual wandering of the small egoic mind, to remember what's real. See, the absolute reality is God clear light that's here now. The relative or reality, meaning physical realm reality, is forms that seem to be little separate forms. But what will happen in your awakening is there's only continuous light. There's no separate forms, like all these images on the screen. There's only continuous light going constantly through Edward, Barbie, Angela, Leon, Francis, Nance, Gonzalo, Joan, Lynn, Alvaro, Jerry, Gabby, Debbie, me. Constant light here, folks. Clear light is all there is, but it's passing through the forms of light. So think of these images as forms of light. They're totally filled with light. Just can't see it yet. But you're faking it while you make it. It's how you think of this. There's no little separate body. My little body's not stopped here. Barbie's hadn't stopped there. Angela's not stopped there. We're interconnected by this continuous clear light. Now, also, what happened, I forgot this till I wrote it in a note, but after I was realized and brought Trump's image back into my mind and saw, oh, see, then there's just, when it talks about oneness, only one, there's only one clear light, continuous. There aren't separate lights. Edward's not a separate light. Angela's not a separate light. Gonzalo's not a separate light. Gabby's not a separate light. It's continuous light. That's the oneness, the union of the deal is that. Light does animate the form to make the hands and make us have this life here. And then of death is when that light leaves. And like Jesus said, wasn't it last week or the week before we read the part, takes you past centuries of effort. I had century, Jesus says it in the Course, whatever this was, it was taking us past. Oh, that was the bridging the gap between the egoic self and this holy vertical clear light spaciousness that God is, to bridge the gap where we think there's a separate gap between us. He says, takes you past centuries of effort. Now, why the heck would he write, take you past centuries of effort? Means when you, reincarnation, you're not awakened in this lifetime. When you pass, you'll reincarnate into another form. I'm not sure, there's 6 realms of this one. Then you try it again. You try again to remember what you are and what your brothers are, and that we're love. Now, the fast track would be if you could just start faking it while you make it and loving everything. Just silently, methodically, loving everything. I love you, I love you, I love you. But anyway, you get the point. Oh, but what I saw was, picture this might help you, it's called Indra's Net, I-N-D-R-A apostrophe S, Indra's Net. When I first saw this net, it was probably a few years ago. In my mind, it's golden, yellow, and it's glittering. luminous, glittering, golden, just brilliant golden. It's a net. And when I saw it, I thought, that looks like a fisherman's net. You know, the net they throw in the water to catch fish. Because it was golden and luminous, and it had squares. It was just full of squares. And when I'd contemplate it, it's sort of like these forms. Picture the square in the net. There's a side, but then the next square, you see, those are spirits. Those are sentient beings in that net. We're all interconnected in this golden luminous net, INDRAS net, meaning all that light is just continuous, flowing naturally. That's all there is. But anyway, I saw that net again, and it just glows. It just glows because, see, we're luminous. This light is just so beautiful. It's just beautiful. The golden yellow color was this net. Maybe that's another symbol that can help you remember we're not separate from each other. We're all, write the word down, interconnected. I learned that word from Lama Surya Das, and I didn't get that I only truly got that after Monday morning. Today's Tuesday. Monday morning when all this stuff happened. Oh, because I want to share, because Jesus uses the word projections, and in our chants and prayers in the Dzogchen meditation, they talk about projections. Because, see, the Son of God's projecting projections, images. I had thought about projections were laying on top of the clear light. Projections, that's how I'd kind of resolved it. But I always stay open, open, open. I say that to myself. Stay relaxed and surrendered, open, open, open to spirit. Guide me what to do or say. Because, see, I don't want to have fixed, remember those characteristics of an unawakened mind? Fixed positions, entrenched opinions, obsessions. I mean, really, unfulfilling, frozen patterns of behavior. I mean, best bingo, just picture when you're having one of these. But I know enough to keep saying to myself, no expectations, stay open, 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 relaxed and surrendered to spirit. And so as this image, dark black image, which is my evil thinking mind, got brought in from a projection into my mind, that's how I realized and sat with the images are all filled with light continuously. There's no sitting on anything. There's no up or down. Oh, and that's the other thing that happened. There's no, when in awakening, it'll come finally, there's no inside or outside. But in the awakening, you first got to recognize those projections that are out there. Where the heck did they come from? What are those? Then you're becoming aware of what your mind's like. Then you're kind of flowing projection with mind as you do these truths in the course and you meditate. You touch that stillness, that sweet, blissful Christ vertical space inside your mind, your home, your Christ home, and you're coming back home to within your mind. But ultimately, the mind, there's no borders on it. There's no in or out. It's just total God mind. That's all there is. That's why Jesus says your mind in a mind, purely mind, with images coming and going, passing through the light, because they're light. These dark images are light. They're not darkness. Your forms, your bodies are not darkness. This is all light. This is all light. And even scientists, physicists proven there's just space and light. between all your cells, all those protons and neutrons. It just looks like we're this fixed body. Of course, we never put the body in harm's way. Of course not. All right, now we're 7:54. Let's make sure I want to get to the part though that I want to make sure there's like Sanger, I forget that guy's name, wrote a book. There's no head. There's only this clear light mind. That's God, Christ, Buddha mind. That's everything is one in. It's all flowing light. That's why the characteristic of an awakened mind. Let me find my little sheet of paper. Free flowing, natural, well-rounded, like Teflon. The unawakened or ordinary mind's rigid, limited, sticky like flypaper. The ordinary mind has corners and sharp, jagged edges on which ideas get caught, hanging us up. Dualistic thinking is like Velcro. It takes two to tangle. Unitary vision is more like a crystal through which all forms of light can pass unimpeded. See, all these forms are coming and going unimpeded. Until I grab onto one, I got to have it attached to it or push it away, aversion, get the heck out of here. And then Lama Surya calls it having rope burn. I picture you got all the images are going like little Mila beads, little images through your hands. Everything's flowing. The stuff's coming and going. You're spontaneous. You've not made some big judgment about something or whatever, but all of a sudden, wham, you grab onto an idea, an emotion, a thing, and you get rope burn. Just picture the rope just burning through your hand. It's trying to go, but you won't let it go. So, but in your mind, you're feeling maybe either really happy or unhappy, sad. But what we're wanting is not over elated when something really good happens and not depressed when something bad happens. That's what occurs due to meditation. You become the middle way. You become a middle way. And you're letting forms of light pass unimpeded. The unawakened mind tries to grasp and hold on to emotions and things which by their very nature are fleeting. See, because things are so insubstantial, changing, fleeting, that's the nature of the physical world. But we've not been taught that. We've been taught that you can fix into a certain job, you fix into a certain house, you fix into certain behavior pattern, you fix with you get the point. What we're trying to do is grab onto and stop, quit this change. I don't want change. Just sit with all that. Who wants change? Getting old and my mind's not as good as it was, my hearing's not as good, or man, blah, blah, blah. We're wanting to grab and hold on to the past or something's better. If I can change, you get the point. But the thing is, you're becoming aware of how the physical world works, and that there really is no existence of the physical world. It's dreamlike, hallucination, fantasy, all the things Jesus says. You're coming along the path to grasp that. So you let these things come and go and be just as they are, then you have less suffering, because you're accepting that things change in the physical world, and you're not trying to grab onto them and hold on to them. It's like trying to grasp water between your hands. You're developing a mind that clings to nothing. You're developing a mind that has keen discrimination and penetrating wisdom. You're penetrating through this delusion, hallucination to see the truth in moments, and then you're back. Of course, we're cooking dinner, going to grocery. That's called soaring while swooping. You live in the world while you're waking up. It's a balance, soaring like swooping. We talked about that with a swallowtail kite bird. What was that bird? Swallowtail kite. As you watch a bird fly in the sky, these big birds, their wings go up and down where they ride the currents of the winds. And these are the currents of up and down currents of daily living. You're learning how to soar and swoop at the same time. It's just beautiful. You end up flowing with these forms without aversion and attachment. And then when things do happen that seem to be happy or sad, you're not carried off by them because they won't stop. The ego won't stop talking, and good and bad things don't stop happening. It's just the way it is. But you go with the flow, and you're not just taken off your feet by it, overloaded or depressed by something. Okay. Now, anybody got a thought or a comment? We're still recording. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Any thoughts or comments about it and this? That people love to hear your thoughts and comments. Gonzalo's on the mute button. Hi, Gonzalo.
Hey, thanks for being here. Yeah, so what you were talking about seeing a dark image, I think I shared something about that a couple weeks back, that I'm having a similar experience during my sleeping time at night. And, I did get help because it was disturbing. It was really disturbing, especially when you're kind of half sleep state. So the main thing to remember that for all of us, that the deeper we go, that the ego will throw these seemingly more intense challenges at us to get us to run, to get us to go away. Remember, the ego's job is for us to stay asleep. The ego's job is for us to stay in a trance, for us to stay away from the doorway to heaven so we don't ever find out who we are. So the more we get caught in being afraid, trying to analyze, oh shit, something's wrong with me, the more we stay stuck there, we don't go any further. And again, like you always emphasize, Glenn, it doesn't mean we get help, get counseling. I got some help from a couple of friends who were very psychically gifted to give me some insight, and it was helpful. And so I kept going, but at the core, throughout all the fear, I realized that this was coming from my mind. It was still in there throughout all the fear and all the shit that was going through these images that I am experiencing. Nonetheless, there's a remembrance, the knowing that it's still rooted in my mind. Even though we invite it in, we invite the intensity, the fear feeds it, the fear powers the images. Nonetheless, the invitation is given by us at the core. So to everybody, I just remember to, when this comes up, because it will come up, the ego's job, again, is to scare us away from the doorway to heaven. So prepare yourself. Again, do the work unconditionally with everything that comes up. Don't wait until we're upset or depressed or angry or scared. Do it when we're happy. Do it when we're feeling okay, because the consistency is the only thing that's going to build our faith, really, in realizing what Jesus is teaching us about who we are, being the light of God. The consistency is what's going to get us through the really, really thick, dark times. It's not, obviously, we kind of come to a place where we pick up the book or we start to go deeper when we're having challenges and when we're depressed and when we're going through real darkness. That's when we kind of tend to get serious. But eventually we just have to decide we only really are here to know ourselves as God created us. And that's it. That's the only reason we're here. And every experience comes back to that one purpose. So just sharing that, because it's important that we support each other in being strong and steadfast and try as best we can to laugh during the day. I always remind myself, crack a smile, crack a foolish, childlike expression during the day. And my students help me with that because they like acting a fool, and it's a good thing for me to remind. I have to set limits on it, which is a big lesson today. I had to put my foot down with somebody, but even that too, again, we realize that, that invitation to want to attack is also part of our practice to know ourselves. It's not separate. So everything comes back to that. And again, as long as we keep looking up and asking, we'll be shown and we'll be guided through. The main thing is to don't flinch and run the other way, because it sets us back, it sets us back, and we're going to do it. But just again, if we can just pick ourselves up and look up and realizing we're never alone, we just have to ask. So just to
Now, Gonzalo, you touched on 2 or 3 great things. That is beautiful. Breathe, relax, and smile. That's if I don't feel like smiling outwardly, smile inwardly, and it changes the endorphins inside the form. So always take that deep breath 2 inches below the navel, deep breath in, and on the out breath saying ah, in tension times 3 times in a row. That will greatly relax a person. And remember, just breathe, relax, and smile. And that good point, Gonzalo, take time to go have fun. Enjoy yourself, your flowers, the green parks, a movie, out to eat, or whatever you do to have fun. And you within you're still doing your practice, but also what Gonzalo's saying is, and I look back on this awakening is, and Jesus describes, as you meditate and also practice saying, I love you to these things, what will happen, it will surface these unconscious judgments and thoughts that we've had in our mind about people or events or whatever, whomever, whatever. Then don't take it personal. Just remember the image is showing you just to practice believing that there's spirit, God, Christ, Buddha. Simply just saying you're Christ, Buddha, God. You don't have to get into the analyzing of the what if or the what, why they did that or why I did that. Everybody's doing the best they can. That's all that's happened. And you just do the best you can, and whatever happens, happens, and you let go. Just constantly, you're always letting go, instead of hanging on to these judgments or thoughts that are bad memories, or maybe overly zealous memories, because that's what'll happen. Holy Spirit's bringing them to the surface for you to forgive and overlook them, and not bury them, not repress them, but not get carried off with them either. And although sometimes some horrible addictions or abuses need psychotherapy where things are looked at. So don't get me wrong, that happens where you need to investigate something, etc. But wow, way to go, Gonzalo.
Thank you.
That you're aware, you're living aware. Thank you. Anything else, Gonzalo? Okay.
Well, I think that was it for now. I'll share something in a moment if somebody else wants to talk. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? And then Gonzalo's going to regroup and come back. Anything else? No, anybody's not saying anything. So Gonzalo, go for it. Go for it. While we're still in recording.
I've been watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary on Netflix. If anybody's an Arnold
I
Schwarzenegger,
was watching that today, Gonzalo.
well, you probably can sense where I'm going. I'm a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan from the 80s. He was like my idol from the 80s for a lot of reasons. And talk about some ego shit to wear off, but that was a hell of an idol to have. But one of the things that struck me with his life story is that he has to this day an extremely rare sense of determination in him.
He does, doesn't he?
You know his story, coming from Austria, going through what he went through over there to get to the United States. He would not have done that had he not had this extreme sense of clarity in his mind about where he wanted to go. And he was absolutely convinced he was going to get there. He didn't know how, he just knew. And his
now, Gonzalo, let me interrupt just a second. Now, what did it was, see, suffering can motivate big change. His parents would have beat him and abused him, and I had an alcoholic father who would come home and yell and do different things. And so he had a family life that he didn't wanted to be gone out of. Suffering took him to, and then he had a very highly visual mind, doesn't he, Gonzalo? Highly visual mind and clear mind of goals and stuff. But go ahead.
Yeah, and that was a big part of the theme, is that his his upbringing, he said, as hard as it was with the, the father being, he was a father, was a policeman, former military, very extremely strict, rigid, and had him and his brother in a very strict upbringing, like you said, just beatings and the whole thing. The brother actually killed himself, but Arnold said it was the perfect upbringing for him because it simply motivated what he already had in him, which is a burning desire. It gave him like this extra that was so rare. And the point of all of that is to say that yes, there's all the ego desires that Arnold got met, that he, will acknowledge were what they were in the world. But nonetheless, the part that we can take in our spiritual practice is that, like Arnold, we need to get to the point where we're absolutely hell bent and determined, where nothing else matters except waking up. Paul Cardillo, who we shared the retreat at when you were here, Glenda, he says so beautifully that you have to want to wake up as bad as a drowning man wants air. That's how bad it has to be. That is no bullshit. I'm telling you that. Everybody listen to me. I'm telling you, it has to be that bad for us to want to wake up, because otherwise we get kind of comfortable in our ego.
Yep. Get stuck.
Our ego suffering. We get comfortable in our ego suffering to the point where we just tolerate it lifetime after lifetime because it's so common around us. And I think one of the things that have resonated with Arnold for so long is because he doesn't tolerate people who make excuses. And I have a really hard resistance for people that are excuse makers about why they're suffering. I have a very low tolerance for excuse makers because I don't make any of them. I used to, and I learned that it's complete setup. And I really love that part of him of, all the ego stuff, but there's a core of realizing that we have to want to know our God-given purpose as bad as a drowning man wants air. Don't kid yourself. It has to be that bad. But as Glenda says, in between all of the deep work and all the tough work that gets there sometimes, as best we can, try to throw in every day, as often as we can, some childlike fun, because in the end of the day, that's what Jesus wants us to realize is our heaven-like state. So that's what I wanted to share.
Wow, it's perfect. I'm watching that series too. I saw it. Because within us is that ability to focus, called concentration and focus. And with meditation, you get more aware of the power of your mind. That's what I learned. I didn't know the power of the mind. The ability to bring it back from a wandering thought back to that vertical axis is huge, huge. Even when you nod off in meditation, to remember when you nod back, oh yeah, I went to sleep, I'm coming back to vertical axis. You got to start practicing or you can't develop a practice. But anyway, thanks, Gonzalo. And another saying is practice like your hair's on fire. I mean, it's still a balance, but you do need a commitment in your journal. Because even now to this day, I walk and carry around that list of characteristics of mine, because I'm not going to be fooled anymore. I'm not falling for the traps of ego. We're educating ourselves on how the mind works, how the physical realm, false delusion works. You all get it. Any other thoughts or ideas before I stop the recording? Thank you, Gonzalo. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everyone. Oh, before we go, take on the screen each person here and think of them as Christ, Buddha, God, and yourself. Just see that how we think of another person is how you think of yourself. I'll just close with there's only one mind. And so all these thoughts that you think go into that one mind, and that one mind thinks everything you think, say, and do is about you. They don't know we're think, saying, and doing it about somebody else. It thinks it's you. So it stores it. So, so when you're thinking, this world, you don't, is an illusion, don't stop there. Say there's only God. God, clear light everywhere. Because if you just keep saying there's only illusion, the mind thinks you're an illusion, you'll get depressed. No, you finish it with purity and truth. I am spirit, I'm God, I'm Buddha, I'm awakening now. I'm awake now, right? Okay. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Holy Son of God, Edward. Holy Son of God, Barbie. Holy Son of God, Angela. Holy Son of God, Leon. Holy Son of God, Francis. Holy Son of God, Nance. Holy Son of God, Joan. Holy Son of God, Gonzalo. Holy Son of God, Alvaro. Holy Son of God, Jerry. Holy Son of God, Debbie. Holy Son of Gabby. Holy Son of God, Lynn, who had to leave. Holy Son of God, Glenda. Thank you. I'll see you all next week, and where do I stop the recording?